Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're gonna do a standalone that's from a series. So we are going to take book two from the Mafia Brides by Lee Savino, and we're gonna dive into book two, which is titled "Vengeance Is Mine." We meet Lula Romano, and she's at the altar and she's about to marry a man named David. Now, David does booger sugar, and you all know what that means. And he looks at Lula like he cannot believe his luck, like this is the best thing that's ever happened to him. That's how he looks at her. She apparently has no family here at the wedding. He has his aunt Eunice, who is very skeptical of our girl Lula, and apparently for good reason. So our girl Lula doesn't love David and is only marrying him to get to a man named Stephanos. Now we don't know what Stephanos did, but it had to be pretty bad that someone is willing to marry somebody just to get next to you. Okay? Or she just could be a little off her rockers. We don't know. So as they are standing at the altar, this 6 foot tall, blondish, dark eyes guy comes in and he reaches for David like he's reaching for a hug, and he stabs him right in the heart. Everyone else around is screaming. She doesn't scream. The only thought that goes through her head is she no longer has a way to get close to Stephanos. But here's the thing. When the person stabbed David, they said this is a message from Stephanos. So clearly this person knows who Stephanos is. So the guy leaves. She is in shock, but she just walks out. And she's just stuck for a moment, and she starts thinking, okay, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get to a safe house. She starts thinking of what she has to do. So her family did not want her to go after Stephanos. Thus the reason they are not at this wedding. Okay? And she's trying to think of a plan. And so as she's leaving out of the church, she gets snatched up by Mr. Stabber. And he says, oh, no, 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 no. You're coming with me. We switch to Victor's POV, aka Mr. Stabber. You already know I love when they switch back and forth. So he's taken her, he's put her in the back of a vehicle. She is still not freaking out, and she's not fighting him either. So this, of course, is not a normal response. This is absolutely not what he expected. He expected for the bride to be like screaming, like anything. But he noticed that she just stood there when it happened. There were no tears, nothing. So he brings this up to her, and she goes, well, I'm in shock. But he can tell that's not even the truth. And so he sees this little dagger that's on her necklace, and she does eventually ask him, why did you take out the groom? Or my groom to be, is how she puts it. And he says, I just take orders. She realizes very quickly, clearly, this is just a hitman. You know, no ties. There's no attachment here. So she then asks him, like, well, why didn't you just use a bullet? Like, why did that seems more efficient? And he says, well, I prefer to stab. And she said, she was like, okay, if you prefer to stab, and the way he describes it, like, he sounds like a psychopath. He does. And she tells him that. Well, it comes out that apparently the guy, the David dude that she was about to marry, he was stealing money from Stephanos, who is, I guess, in the Greek section of the mob. She's in like an Italian section. Stephanos is in the Greek section. And no one steals from from Stephanos. But Victor doesn't say this thing to her. It's just kind of something he's thinking about. He would have preferred not to have done the kill in public, but Stephanos wanted it done for people to see because he wanted a splash. He wanted to send a message to everybody. So he himself, Victor, is surprised that Stephanos has even been in power as long as he has. He doesn't think too highly of him. You know how some people, you might not like them, but you kind of understand. I get why you're in power, you're a certain way, but this dude, the way he moves, just is kind of for him. It's like I don't even know why he's even in power. She asked him what's his name, and she realizes by her asking this, well, in his head he's thinking if she's asking me this, then she knows that her survival rate is going to go down because who's going to take you and want you to be able to identify them, right? And he says, "Are you serious? Like, you really want to know?" So after a beat, she does say yes, and he says, "My name's Victor." He asked her name, and she says Vera. So I'm like, wait a minute, I thought her name was Lula. But Vera's the name she gives him. So they're riding through, there's like all this sexual tension, and there's like a lot of stuff. There's fear, there's the regular tension, there's the sexual, there's a lot going on, okay? And words aren't even being said, but they're being felt. So the author does a really great job of describing those scenes. It's a short read. It's like under 200 pages, but so if it's something you want to check out, it would be great to read how the author describes what's, the looks and the feelings that are transpiring between the two of them. So it is a good read. So anyway, they're driving along, and the driver goes through. Okay, he didn't come to a complete stop at the stop sign. And he was like, he's gonna have to talk to Stephanos about his driver, because the thing is, when you commit these type of crimes, you don't want to break stupid laws, leaving the crime scene, which makes sense. You want to be as normal as possible. I totally understand that. So she asks him, "Where are you taking me?" He doesn't say anything, but they pull up to this 5-story apartment building, very bland looking, and this is where he calls home. And she asked him, why did he take her? And he said, because Stefano said I could choose my reward, and I choose you. So we switch back to Lula, and we find out Vera is not her real name. That's just the fake name she gave. Vera is her mother's name. So Lula is a contract lawyer. She's doing this because of what happened to her mother. So it sounded like her mother probably got offed for whatever reason, but like her whole purpose has been to try and avenge her mother. So when they get to the building, the driver won't even look at her, because the driver's probably thinking he's not helping, right? He don't want to know what she looks like. He don't want to know nothing. So Victor winds up picking her up and carrying her over the threshold into this building, and they go up to the top floor, and he's got like this pristine looking apartment. But all she can see is that this looks like the perfect place where you can take someone out and clean it up super fast. Now, she doesn't tell him this, but this is what the plan was with David. So she had told David that she was a virgin. That's why they were getting married so quickly, because she had told him, you know, she didn't want to have sex until she got married. The truth is, she hasn't been with someone in like a lot of years, and she was not going to consummate the marriage. What she was going to do was put something in his drink to make David knocked out, and then she put some blood on the sheets to say that the marriage was consummated. So they're up in this apartment, and Victor winds up allowing her to go and freshen up, which I was shocked because I was like, you don't know, like he's a hitman, right? Like how do they? You don't know how they react to stuff. But she knew that they were about to have sex. There's too much sexual tension, and she at this rate she felt like hell. She needed it anyway, so she asked if she could go to the bathroom, freshen up. And so she goes in the bathroom, and we find out old girl's got a little gun that she had strapped. It's strapped to her garter belt. So she was going to use that to take out Stephanos. But he didn't show up to the wedding, but that was the whole goal. So she hides the gun in the bathroom, and it's a good thing she put it away and she didn't lock the door because he opens the door. Victor does. And she asks him to help her with her dress. So she's facing the mirror. He takes his knife, he slices down the dress, and he has it so close he could cut her. Then he winds up touching her clit, and she's like absolutely he in her cooch she's drenched. And so he pops one side of her bra off, and he has the knife playing with her nipple, and just from those two things he makes her come. And then after that they wind up having this nice hard fuck, and he's like behind her, they're looking in the mirror at each other, super hot, right? So she comes again like this. Then he takes the bottom of the knife, the part you hold, and he fucks her with that part. I was like, oh my gosh. Well, she comes again. Then he tells her to get on her knees. She's ready to suck him, but he winds up taking the knife, and I'm assuming it's the back part again. I don't know. But he put that and made her suck that and fucked her throat with it. And she rubs one out, makes herself come again. Crazy as shit, okay? So, this is what's even crazier. This is the same knife that he used to take out David. All he did was wipe it off. This shit ain't disinfected. Even if it had been disinfected, this is different. Again, if you're into this type of play, then it's different, right? It's normal. But I was like, oh my gosh. But after that, she's ready to suck him. And he tells her, oh, I'm not done with you yet. And he picks her up and takes her to the bedroom. So he takes her and puts her on the bed. He finished stripping because he was still had his clothes on. All he had pulled out was his dick in the bathroom. And he tells her how he wants to hear her scream his name. Because she's being super controlled. Even though this girl done came like 3 or 4 times, like, she's not screaming out when she does it. But he can tell based on her body and how her face looks and stuff that she's coming. But she's not screaming out. And so then, sure enough, after that, they go to town. The girl came so much she can't even remember half of the orgasms. And what did he say? He told her, like, I'm going to fuck you all night and you're going to scream my name. And she starts thinking about if she could run. But I'm like, girl, if you run, he's going to catch you. Like, this a real hitman. Like, this is not some, I would think a regular person would, like, catch you. You know what I mean? Like, girl. So here's going to be the problem. Victor's sitting there thinking, I'm not going to be able to let her go. Like, his normal thing with women, he'll fuck with them and then he's done with them. He might do them a second day, but normally he throws them away. Mm-mm. He can tell that's not going to work with her. Like, he really doesn't want to let her go. So our girl wakes up. Her mouth feels like cotton because, yeah, he made her do it. She's been screaming or screaming through orgasms all night. And the crazy thing is, she could go for another round right now. He looks so peaceful. It almost makes her wonder what it would be like to have this every day. But then she goes, can't think about that. I got to get back to my plan. So she goes, sneaks out. She goes in the bathroom. She gets her gun. And then we switch to Victor's POV. And Victor wakes up, and for Victor, it's like this has been the best sleep he's ever had since he was a kid. And he's thinking, like, that's something I need to dig into. Like, why am I so comfortable sleeping with her? So she's not in the bed, and he's looking like, what the hell? He has her necklace that has a little dagger in it that she wears. He had snatched it off while they were fucking, and he held onto it the whole night. So now he's awoken, and his girl has a gun pointed at him. He, of course, is like, what game is this? Because he doesn't realize what her whole, you know, deal is. So he's thinking this is some sexy game. But she winds up shooting him in the stomach and leaves. And she said to him before she did it, it's nothing personal. Left out. We switch back to her POV, and she goes to this restaurant called Three Diners. And this is basically, it's like a place where women go for help, but not like a shelter type of place. It's like if you need ammunition, if you need, they're those type of women. And so she knows the signals of what to give to the waitress in order to get one of the women to come out. And so she does that, and we find out her mother used to bring her here when she was younger. And so the women know who she is. They remember her, but they also know that she's been asking around because she's been trying to get to Stephanos for a while now. And they go back and forth, and one of the women comes out. They bring her a bag. They also bring her a phone, which has her cousin Royal. So Royal is over the familia now. And he's on the phone, and he's trying to get her to stand down. He's like, you can't do this. He's like, I don't have enough time to get men there to help you. He's like, if you go in there, you're going to get killed. But she has already come to accept the fact that this is going to be it for her. Her only thing is she can go ahead and die. She doesn't care as long as she's able to take out this dude, because Stephanos is the person that killed her mother. Now, she found out this information from her dying father. And so ever since then, she's been on this path of vengeance. Of this is my purpose is to take this man out and to be done. Now, what I did forget to mention, before she shot our boy Victor, she had gotten his burner phone, the one that he communicates with Stephanos with, and she asked for the code. He gave it to her, and she's been going back and forth with messages to try and arrange the final payment, because she knows that he hasn't fully paid Victor for I don't want to say assassination, it probably is that. Just doesn't seem too, like, it seems too much for the David character. But she now knows where he is. And she also took, because her wedding dress was done for, so she's got on Victor's tan trench coat and nothing else underneath it. That's it. And some heels, because she did have on heels. So that's all she has. So the women from this place, she also is going to leave them. If she goes down, she's already left in her will for them to get her money, because this place does help people. So that's taken care of. So she really has come to that whole thing of, this is it for me, and she's okay with it. That's a dangerous person. It really is. So anyway, she gets to the location. What is it called? It's a restaurant, Cavatelli's. And she plays like she's a call girl. And it works. It gets her in. And then when she gets close, she takes off her trench coat to, like, startle the other guys. And Bruno is like that's his main dude. Like that dude will do anything for him, will protect him until the end. Okay? So Bruno realizes something's up and he winds up he starts shooting, and so the shot that she got off, it didn't do anything. So now she's covering, trying to, not get shot. So I'm like, you really want to resign to go out, I guess. But I guess her purpose was she wants to take out Stefano. So if she can't do that, then no, she's not ready to go anywhere yet. But this would have been, I will say, this would have been a great movie. This action scene, oh my gosh, this would have been great to see visually. It really would have been. Um, Again, great description. So it's a good read. So anyway, he gets away. She might have been hit because she's bleeding. And, the place is shot up. And it's just, it's chaos. It is a place of chaos. We fast forward 3 months. And so we find out she was able to call Royal. And he got there with some people, and she's been in this safe house ever since. It's a nice safe house. It's like a 3-story house on the water. Okay. She is a contract lawyer. That's what she does for the families. There's 4 families. Royal is the head of the family now because her father, he's dead, and Royal's father is like rotting away in prison. So she knows that Stephanos didn't die. He just got hit in the shoulder. That's as much as she did. He's recuperating, but he has now gone further underground in Metropolis. So which makes me, when I hear Metropolis, it just makes me think DC Comics. Just makes me think about that for some reason. But anyway, so she's been, working, closing deals. That's what she does. And the phone rings, but not a regular phone, that burner phone. She never got rid of it. Now, it's in a drawer, it's buzzing around, and eventually she answers, but she doesn't say anything. She stays silent. Then she hears a breath and she hears Vera. And she hangs up because 2 things she now knows. Victor is not dead, and she really didn't want him to be dead. We find out she's been pleasuring herself a lot just to the thought of that man for the past few months. But when he says that name, she knows he's going to come after her. Like, he's coming for retribution. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be kind of crazy. She gets her gun out because now she's on alert. Like, oh my gosh, what if he's here? And she's looking around crazy. And then she's like, no, he's not here. Can't be here. So she chills out. She pours herself some wine. She gets a call from Royal. Royal is like, you need to take your place at the table. He wants her to be the consigliere. And she's like, they're never going to let a woman do it. And he's like, I'm over the family. We can do this. Things are changing. It doesn't matter what our parents would have allowed or what they wanted. They're not here. You know? We can do this how we want to do it. And he's like, you've been doing the job pretty much this whole time. She's the one that gives him advice on stuff. So it's kind of like, why are you not? But something's still holding her back from accepting it. I'm curious as to what's holding her back. I really am. So then her brother Gino pops up and she tells him, you can't do this. It's a safe house. The purpose of a safe house is to keep me safe. It's not for you to come by. He wants to order pizza. He's just too much. Okay? He apparently is like a really nice looking guy and he skirts by on his looks. But he's a bubbling idiot. He has blown through his inheritance. He wants her to give him more money because there's an estate, there's a trust that has money to take care of like the house they grew up in and stuff. And he wants money from that. And she's like, no, that's to keep the house going. No. And he's like, well, then make Royal give me more responsibility. And she's like, look how you sound. Like, listen to what you sound like. You want your sister to go to your cousin, who is the head of the family, and ask him to give you more responsibility because you can't do it yourself? Like, that says everything. So he tries to make it out to be like she's just gotten everything, but we find out she's worked her ass off. She was working 100-hour weeks, grueling work. So she's earned what she has, but he doesn't see it that way. So she hears something and she goes to check it out, and when she comes back, her brother and her gun is gone. And she knows Victor's ass is here. She doesn't want him to, kill her brother. Even though, I mean, I don't know. He just seems like a waste. I know that's horrible to say about a human, but he just seems so awful. He's like a little whiny baby. Ugh. But I don't want him to get hurt. I don't. She definitely doesn't either. Victor emerges and she goes to run and hit the alarm, but she doesn't make it. He snatches her, calls her by her full name, which is like Lucrezia, something Romano. And he was like, I'm going to stick with Lula because I don't like her real name. Sorry, it's not cute. But anyway, in that moment, she knows, oh God, he knows everything. He sticks a needle in her neck, everything goes black. When she comes to, she's in this room. She's blinking, trying to adjust her eyes. She's tied up. She's naked. He gives her some water. And she thinks, well, at least he's going to keep me alive for a short period of time. Otherwise, he would have just he's not going to let me die from dehydration. So she says, well, clearly you're not. She's like, I know you're going to kill me. And he says that he's not going to do that. But he is going to break her. I was like, damn. So, so again, Lula is from the Romano family. Her father's name was Giovanni. Her mother's name was Vera. And he knows, we switch back to his POV, by the way. This is all the stuff that he knows. He knows that she's a lawyer. He knows she's basically a mafia princess. All of this stuff. Once he realized her name wasn't Vera, he went down this whole rabbit hole of trying to find out who exactly this woman was. Okay? He told her how crazy she was to try and take Stephanos on in his lair by herself. And she said at the time it seemed like the only option. I had worked too hard to get that close to let it go. He knows that she used him, but it doesn't bother him. But he does want to torture her. Now, I don't know how bad this is going to be. Okay? This place, she describes it looking like a butcher's like a butcher shop. He says that a butcher taught him how to do this. So I'm like, oh gosh. So she asked him what happened to her brother. He said he was alive when I left. Now, if he drove off a cliff, I don't know. And she goes, let's just get this over with. Like, she's just ready to accept whatever her fate's going to be. But he wants her mind to go through torture the way his went through. And I was like, oh shit. And he says if she acts right, like if she does as she should, then eventually he'll let her come. She'll be rewarded. She'll get she'll get a bed eventually. It does not appear that he wants to kill her. But clearly there will be torture. um this should be fun. And when I say fun, I mean like a crazy ride to read, because this is a hit man. This is not just some lovesick pup. This is a hit man who I think felt something that he had never felt, and her running away from it upset him. But he seen when they describe his the way he talked to her about her running into that Stephanos's lair by herself, it was like this concern, like this, how could you do that, like type of thing. So something's going on with him. He uses nipple clamps. He sees the scar that's between her legs. Um, he of course demands to know who hurt her. She says basically it was like, it wasn't a gunshot wound. It was like shrapnel that hit her. And he's telling her how he's going to take her to the depths of pain and just all this type of crap. And she thought about trying to fake and make things seem like they hurt worse than what they did. But something about the way he watches her, he's going to know she's lying. He's going to know. So she decides, I'm not going to do that dumb shit. So he takes off the clamps and he puts on some harsher ones. She's, I want to say, suspended in, it's a whole thing. She's suspended in air. He winds up fingering her, making her come, and then she bites his lip when he kisses her, and she draws blood. And then he goes, okay, we'll do it the hard way. So he goes back and forth with using floggers. One's called a dragon tail. He's got these nipple clamps with screws in them. He's tightening them every time she's, um, red. It's crazy. And he'll stick a finger in her cooch. She's dripping wet, but he will not let her come. He's like edging her, and he keeps doing it. And he gets her to the point where she's going, I can't take it, and he winds up stopping the flogging. He takes the nipple screws off, licks her breasts. She's super sensitive, but it's like, it's not feel good. It's like painful, right? And then he turns on. What does he do? He winds up jacking off and nutting on her, and then takes his finger in the cum and puts it on her lips. And I was like, well, damn. He winds up taking her into this huge Roman bath. He shaved her legs, shaved her pussy. He asked her some questions, wanting to know, like, who taught her how to shoot. She says at first her father didn't want to show her, but she was so persistent that her uncles eventually, they started showing her, and then the father realized she wasn't going to relinquish, so then he started taking her to the gun range. So he tells her that he found out that she went to 3 diners, and after she had shot him, and she's like, did you hurt them? And he says, no, I had no reason to. He said, I was just trying to find out who you were and what you were doing. And what did he tell her? He basically was letting her know, as long as she pleases him, he'll reward her. He feeds her a burger. He puts her in a cage. Yes. We haven't had one of those cage stories in a couple of years. I think I only had one series that a cage was involved. I was like, that's wild. That's too wild. But he feeds her a burger from the diner, gives her water, and then he fucks her throat, comes down her throat, and just says afterwards, good girl. So she's got to go to the bathroom, but we know what happened the last time. So he's gotten her a chain on her, and he's got her blindfolded, and he has the door cracked open. And so when she takes too long, he opens the door and took the blindfold off, and she's like, how long are you going to do this to me? And he says, until you learn how to submit the way I like. You can be in my bed right now if you would learn to submit to me. And so they leave out. He doesn't take her to the cage. He takes her and puts her to a St. Andrew's cross. Her breathing starts to pick up. She's getting a little scared. And I remember us saying that we've read about those in quite a few BDSM books, the St. Andrew's cross. He ties her up on the cross, goes back to flogging her. It gets super intense. He'll slip her finger in, slip it out. And it seems to be getting to a place of breaking her. He winds up putting a vibrator seems like something like a chastity belt. And at first she's thinking, okay, relief from my cooch, right? But then it starts vibrating and he's playing with the different settings. And it's a lot. And so then eventually she begs, she's like, please just let me come, just let me come. So he takes off the chastity belt and he makes her come. And she just keeps, she she can't, this is how crazy it is. She can't tell if this is just a really long orgasm or if these are multiple orgasms. She can't even tell. She is so delirious. She begs him, she's like, I want to taste you. And I'm like, is he gonna do it? Like, but he doesn't. He tells her, he sticks a finger in her ass and tells her, he asks her, has anyone ever had you here? And she says no, and he says, then I'll be your first. Then he goes back to flogging her, and it's like, it feels wonderful, then it starts to feel painful. It's just blurring. She can't tell what's what. But she's still hanging on by a thread. And the only person she feels like that can stop her from drowning is Victor. So I'm like, you're getting pretty close to breaking. So the routine is the same. He works her up, she gets punishment, a bunch of orgasms, and then it gets to a point where she can't take the orgasms. He bathes her, he shaves her, he feeds her, repeat. Okay? So then on this one day, he asked her, why Stephanos? And he said, why did you do that? Like, why did you go in so recklessly? Like, that was suicidal. And he tells her, while he's recuperating, that's what he was trying to figure out. Like, why didn't she, because she could have just killed him, but she shot him in the stomach. And he's like, why did you shoot me in the stomach? Why didn't you shoot me between the eyes? Tell me why. She won't say. She keeps saying, I didn't want to waste a bullet. I'm a bad shot. Just pulling answers out of her ass, right? So they're in the shower and he's telling her, why didn't you do it? And he says to her, you knew that if you shot me in the stomach, I would come for you, and you wanted me to come for you. You wanted me to own you. And she's going, no, that's not it. That's not it. And then he winds up slamming into her, and they have this, hard fuck in the shower. And for her, it feels like, it feels wrong, but then this feels right. Again, it's like all of the sessions, they have been this blurred line of feeling intense pleasure and then pain and then not being able to recognize which is which at some point. Same thing emotionally is going on with her. She winds up waking up and she's wrapped in these soft covers. She's in a bed and she's like, okay. She admits to him why she wanted to kill Stephanos, that it was because, he killed her mother. And he did that to incite a war with the families. And so her mother was on her way to pick her up and she had stopped off to get some cavatelli or something like that. And she kind of blames herself for what happened to her mother. And so this thing has just pushed her in life, this vengeance. That's been her sole purpose. He's holding her. The crazy thing is, she hasn't felt this close to anyone since her mother died. So it's kind of weird that the hitman that kidnapped you, this is the one that you're feeling the closest to. That'll mess with anybody's mind, right? I totally get that. And she winds up saying that, what did she say? He calls her these different endearments. Like he said, sweetheart. And he calls her beautiful. And she like rebuttals against. She's like, no, I'm not beautiful. I'm not sweet. She does that to him. And he's like, you are, but we'll argue about it later. And he keeps going on. And he tells her a story as she's falling back asleep of a little boy that used to love playing with knives. and he lived above a butcher shop. And the butcher used to like to hurt his mother. And when the boy grew up, he killed the butcher and anyone else who ever tried to hurt them. And I said, well, damn, because clearly that's his ass. So we switched to Victor's POV. He's gotten her to sleep. He has a live feed that he can watch of her anytime. He has a doctor that's watching it as well to make sure that she's okay. And this is the same doctor that took care of him after he had gotten shot in the stomach by her. So he's got to go take care of some business. So he goes and he's gotten word of a possible hideout of where Stefanos could be, or at least where some of his men are. So it's this old pizzeria place. He goes there with the suitcase. I'm sorry, not suitcase, with a briefcase with money. And they remember him from the hit on the groom, and they start talking about, the broad that showed up and she was naked and tried to kill him and all this type of stuff. And they think that the woman was just mad about some money because that's what they were told. He stiffed her, okay? So these are all goons. They wind up pulling guns out and stuff. But he is taller. They still know who this man is. This is a whole hitman, right? But he's able to get them to chill out because we find out they haven't really heard from Stefanos in like 10 to 12 weeks. So Victor's like, well, then who's been paying you? And they're like, well, we have jobs, but he knows they don't. They've been eating like dollar pizza. They've been trying to like stay afloat. So he offers up money in exchange for them to tell him where Stefanos is, because he wants the rest of the money on his contract. And they've all got different names, child. One's name, I forget. One's Spiro. It's some other. They had a bunch of names. I don't remember them. But one of them tries to rush him, and he winds up stabbing the shit out the dude. And the problem is, one of them was trying to stay loyal to Stefanos. The other ones want the money, right? Because how you gonna be my boss? How you want my loyalty? But I have things I've got, like, they got bills. They got to take care of people. And you just leave them hanging. To me, you can't ask for loyalty if you ain't gonna get it. That's just my whole philosophy in life. Okay. So my thing also is, if you giving them half the money to get your other half, that don't even make sense. You could have just kept your half of the money and that been your payment. So clearly he saw these men were in desperate need because he's been watching them. And he knew a way to try and pull the information. I mean, it's smart. But they're not in a position to think too much because they're in need. Victor's watching the feed of Stefanos' men, and basically it appears that it's going to be half and half. There's some people that are going to be loyal, and there's some that need that money. So one of the guys named, who I think is Spiro, he might not leave because he has an older mother in the area, because a lot of the guys were talking about getting the money and getting out of town, but he knows certain ones have family there, they're not going to leave. So then we switch back to Lula's POV. She wakes up. She's not in his bed, but she's in her bed. She's got this weighted blanket that was on her. She kicks it off, and one arm is chained to the bed. So she dislocates her thumb so she can take her hand out of the, what is that called? Handcuffs. And it's beyond painful. She tries to run a little distance. She don't get that far. He pops out. And he's like, he takes her to the kitchen. Makes her food. Makes her an omelet. And she asked him how long has she been out. He also let her use the bathroom by herself. She comes out. He's thinking of, this, it's starting to work. Because I would have thought for surely she would have went in that bathroom and tried to figure out a way to get free. But she just ran, so clearly she's still trying to get free. So she's not completely broken, because she's still trying to think of ways to escape. And she hadn't seen him in a couple days, so she asked him what business he had, and he said with Stephanos, and he said that he has gotten half his payment, but he needs the other half. And so she asked him if he's gonna kill Stephanos, and he's like, "Do you want me to?" And they talk back and forth about it, and then she winds up telling him, I'm sorry, he winds up telling her the story about his life. So his mom was a prostitute, and the butcher guy, he taught him about knives, basically. He already had an obsession with him, and this guy taught him how to cut up a body, basically, into pieces. So the butcher used to like fuck with the mom at different times, and then he started to hurt the mom. And that's when he cut the butcher up in pieces. And he left. I guess his mom went to another John, and that guy hit her and it was a fatal blow, and so she died. And then he went and he killed that guy as well. The little boy was only 13 years old when he did this shit, and I'm like, damn. So she wants to know, like, what are you gonna do with me now? And he just says training. And she's thinking like he's going to take her back to that damn dungeon. And she does not want to go back there. And he says, not that type of training. He says, I'm going to teach you how to throw a knife. So he winds up trading her fork for the knife. She, of course, is looking all skeptical. But eventually he tells her to throw it. And they have this session. And when she throws it, he catches it right away. But then he starts making her just throw constantly. So her right arm gets tired. So then he told, like, okay, I'm going to show you how to work your left arm. So afterwards, she's feeling a little powerful, right? She's getting kind of good at this. And she tries to lunge at him with the knife, and he knocks it out of the way. But she had gotten a little too much on him. And eventually he overpowers her, and he had already made the comment like, you won, so he was going to reward her, but now he's won, so he's like, I get my reward. So he fingered her and made her come, and every time he makes her come, he always sticks his finger in her ass because he wants her brain to like register that's pleasure. So that's when she attacked him afterwards, and it's freaking her out that she is relaxing and she's starting to fall. Okay, it's freaking her out. She's trying to keep this fight in her, and I think for him it's like he's got her right where he wants her. So they wind up fucking. He fucks her like 10 ways to Sunday. She comes so much it makes her a little delirious. They the last time they did it, she made a comment about how she should have aimed for his heart. And he says, you didn't aim for it, but you hit it anyway. I say, yeah. He in love with her. I think he felt it from the get-go, and that's why he's been obsessive and why he's been so crazy about her, because he had already fallen. We switch to Lula's POV, and he takes a couple days. They go by, and it's their routine of, the same thing. Well, then he brings out a butt plug and some lube, tells her to bend over, puts a bunch of lube, sticks it in her. She's walking around with the butt plug. It's not terribly horrible, just feels weird. He makes her this delicious steak. He feeds it to her. He tells her that he's getting close to finding out where Stephanos is. She, for some reason, was thinking they were on the same team, Stephanos and Victor. But I'm like, Victor's a contract killer. Like, he's by himself. So she asked him if he found out, what did he say? He also told her, this is what it was. He told her that her cousin Royal's been looking, like, for her. And at this point, Royal's just asking for proof of life. And she makes the comment, I should get word to him. And he's like, what are you going to tell him? What are you going to say? You know? He says, what would you do if I let you go? And he said, what if I disappeared? He said, would you come and find me? And she said, yes. And he said, and when you found me, would you kill me? And she says, no. And she admits to him that she craves him. And I'm like, that's what he wanted to hear. So he's happy. But they're weird. Everybody needs somebody, And they seem to get that other part of themselves that, other people don't. So then he gives her, some good wine to drink. And she's speaking freely because she hasn't had wine in a little while. So it gets to her a little quicker. And he takes her to bed and just gives her all of the orgasms until she falls asleep. So a few days later, he's tied her up and he takes away like all of her senses. Like she's got a gag in her mouth, plug in her ass, vibrator on her clit. She's suspended in the air, midair. It's earplugs in because he's using fire and shit. And I was like, damn. So it's not enough pain for her. And so when he tries to make her come, he's like, you want more pain, don't you? And she's like, yes, I need it. Give it to me, please. And so he gives her more pain. And then he takes her down, takes the plug out of her ass, and replaces it with his dick. It hurts a lot at first, but then eventually her body accepts it. She loves it. And then he takes her to bed, fucks her again, makes her come. It's a lot of stuff going on. Then he takes a knife and he winds up carving her in her, like, her heart, the top of her breast. He puts a V. She never looks down, but he carves it pretty deep, so she's bleeding. And then they're like fucking with all this blood. It's a lot, And then afterwards he puts her in a clean spot on the bed, bandages up the V. And he did another letter, but she couldn't tell what it was. And I'm like, yeah, they on some different type of shit. But, it works for them. So we switched to Victor's POV. He wakes up. He had like 2 complete REM cycles. We find out he didn't sleep too well as a kid. They were in a bad neighborhood. He always had to be on the lookout with his mom. So he's always been a very light sleeper. But with Lula, deep sleep. And he describes her as his soul. So he goes to the burner phone, talks to Spiro, wants to know, if they've got a deal. They give him all the information they have. He feels like, this is going to be a turning point. He feels like last night was a turning point. And once he tells her what he knows, then that's the real test, So we switch back to Lula. She gets up, she goes to the kitchen, she's sore, and she says, let's go easy on the training today, right? But he's moody. And she's like, okay, what's going on with you? And he says, I know who the mole is. It's your brother Gino. How about she's not even shocked? Gino went through that money. He loves the finer things in life. If he's ran out of money, he's looking for a new source. So this doesn't even shock her at all. And being that he's in the family, people talk freely around him. So he's been getting all this intel and has been able to go and provide it to the ops. That's crazy. Crazy. So Victor says to her, if I let you, it's up to you. Like, do you want to stay on this path of revenge? She says it's not revenge, it's vengeance. They just took my mother like she was nothing. She has to be avenged. Whenever I say avenged, I think about that movie, Galaxy Quest. If you haven't seen it, I love it. But I kind of like sci-fi stuff. But whenever I see Avenged, that's what I think about. But anyway, he wants to know what's the path, right? Are you going to stay on this path? And he's like, because your mother's gone, she's not coming back. You know, she's telling him to shut up because this isn't what she wants to hear, right? Vengeance has been her thing since she was younger. That's defined her. And now you're telling her something that makes a lot of sense. You know, basically he's saying, how long are you going to let this consume you? But vengeance is her whole purpose. That's what she's made her purpose. I don't know if she can let that go. Victor goes to the media room where he's watching, and he's got the screen set on Spiro and the crew. He's not paying attention to that one. He's paying attention to the one that's watching Lula. She's not hasn't cried yet. She hasn't broken yet. But he knows she wants to do it. She just sits on the side of the bed. So he leaves and goes. He's gotten the location of supposedly where to pick his money up. He doesn't know if Stefanos is going to be there or not. He plans to get there a little earlier, but it appears Stefanos might have gotten there early as well. So he's on the side. He doesn't come directly in. He goes on the side. And we then switch back to Lula. And he's been gone for a few days. And she's driving herself a little mad. Because I don't know if he's really been gone or has he just not been coming up to see her. I'm not sure. So one day, of course, he comes in. She's sleeping with a knife. And she could feel him there when she woke up. He told her he knows where Stefanos is. And he tells her to put on a dress, a black dress, and a tan trench coat. Just like the one she originally stole. And he says that he's made a trade for her. He said Stefanos wants to know where you are, and he wasn't going to give me the money unless I traded him. I told him I'd bring him the girl for the money. So now she's thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to throw me to the enemy. This is even worse than what I thought. And then he says to her, Lula, do you trust me? So we switch back to Victor's POV. They're in the car, and she's blindfolded. And they get to this place, Cavatelli's or whatever it's called. It's been slightly renovated. They've done a few things to it, probably with the money he gave them. And I don't know if he's friends with these guys. It's a different atmosphere now when he comes around. No one's pulled a gun out. Nothing. So I'm like, is Victor their new boss? Like, what is happening? So anyway, this guy named Joe brings out this silver covered dish. And when he opens it, it is the severed head of Bruno, Stefanos' right-hand man. And he sees all these emotions go through her face. And one, of course, is like, why? Like, what is happening? So he tells the guys, give us a minute. We switch to Lula's POV. They go in the bathroom. She's thinking he brought her in here because he probably thought she was going to be sick, but she's not. But she's stunned. And she's like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And he tells her, I had to prove to you that I would do anything for you. I brought you his head on a platter. He was like, I will kill any and everyone for you. And he's like, I will do whatever you tell me to do. He's like, you own me. He told her, you're it for me. He gave her a knife. He says, you can kill me right now if you want to. He says, if you're not in my life, I'm already dead. And so she nicks him in the neck by mistake, and it bleeds. He's not going to bleed out or anything, but it's blood coming out. But he doesn't move. And she gets a paper towel eventually. She's cleaning him up. And he tells her, he's like, I've never known what love is, but I know what I feel for you. I know that's what this is. It's sick and twisted. It's sick, twisted, and sweet. That's the best way I can put it for these people. He tells her those men out there are at your disposal. He says they will do whatever you tell them to do. He says, if you want me to go out there right now and kill them, I will do anything for you. I say, well, goddamn, talk about devotion. Jeez. So she said, you know where Stefanos is? And he said, yes. He says, do you want me to take you to him? And she says, yes. He said, well, then let's go. So they get in the car. They stop off at the 3 diner to the women, and they just let her know that she's ready. The fates will be with you. You're good. They called her Little Vera. Of course, that touched her because that's her mom's name. They get to Stefanos' hideout spot. Now, normally he's packed down with folks, but Bruno's gone. The right-hand man is gone. And when Victor killed Bruno, that flushed Stefanos out of his hiding space, so he's not as prepared. And so Victor winds up throwing a knife to get his attention, which will make him jump up so she can shoot him. But what happens is she is able to shoot him, but then a bomb goes off too. So Victor covers her with his body. And there's shots from Stefanos, but they don't hit anybody. She gets to Stefanos because he runs a little bit but falls. And she takes a knife and says, this is for my mother, and slits his throat. And she tells him the knife is more satisfying. So then Royal comes in with the family, and Gina, her brother, pulls out a gun to shoot Victor. And she, of course, jumps in front of Victor. But it's cool because the brother, he can't shoot. He shot and it went somewhere else. And he winds up falling, and it's a whole mess with him. So then Royal looks pissed, and he looks like he's ready to kill Victor. Because they know he's the one that had her. And so she grabs Victor and she tells him, you can't touch him, he's mine. They go back to the house, well, Royal's house, and they have a conversation. He, of course, at first was like, I don't know about this man. I mean, he would be a good asset, but, he took you and all this type of stuff. And she tells him there's no other option. He's here. And Royal's like, well, what if he betrays you? She's like, he won't do that. And he's like, okay, I'll accept him, but you've got to take up your role. So she has now accepted to be the consigliere. And again, she was already giving him advice and stuff like that. This just makes it official, gives her an actual seat, gives her an actual vote at the table. So they never say that he kidnapped her, even though they know that that's what happened. But we come to find out, apparently Royal kidnapped his wife Leah, and she fell for him. So I guess these men in this world, their love is obsession. And they like to break you, But anyway, she leaves from there's still an open seat that hasn't been filled, but, maybe he'll get that one day, Victor. But, he's got to prove himself, So they leave from there, and they go back to the building, his building, and she asks him, where's the dungeon? And he says it's in the basement. So he had her in his place the whole time, just on the lower levels. And they go inside, and she goes in the bathroom, and there's an R that's next to the V. Next to the V. And she was like, what is that for? And he said, Romano or Regis, because her mother's maiden name was Regis and her father's name was Romano. But he's like, I'm taking your last name, whichever one you want me to take, because I don't have one. And I'm like, oh my gosh. They are perfect for each other again. They are just, they wind up kissing. There's blood on his neck where she nicked him. It starts to bleed again. She sucked it. Like, they're a match, okay? They have their quirks. That's what we're going to call them. And they're good. And so that's how it ends. So I did like it. It was intense, but I did like it. Just to start off, the soon-to-be husband gets executed. Like, that is insane. But I liked it. Um, she put up a good fight to not fall for him. But honestly, I think the minute she saw him, she had fell as well. She felt that spark. It was there from the beginning. And she just didn't want to recognize it. She didn't want to fall for it because, again, her whole life had been about avenging her mother's death. That's it. Nothing else. So I liked it. I thought it was a cute read. I wanted to do a little standalone before we dive into another series. But what did you guys think? Let me know. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are listed below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.